everyone, and welcome to Boston FinTech Week. I'm Mira Visani, Manager of Client Relations at Sustainalytics, now a Morningstar company.
And I'm Anthony Termini, Senior Vice President of Business Development with our FinTech Alliances team at Morningstar. We're actually filming live from the Morningstar Investment Conference here in Chicago. Many refer to this annual event as the Lollapalooza of investing.
I have to say, it's my first time attending Big Anthony, and I'm loving it. Today, we will be hosting 21 FinTechs defining what's next in the areas of harnessing data at scale, new age retail investing, and sustainability and impact investing from across the country. It's unfortunate that we couldn't do Boston FinTech Week in person, but soon enough. Today, we wanted to take this time to walk you through the Morningstar FinTech Sandbox relationship, tell you a little bit more about Sustainalytics, and lastly, we have an exciting announcement to make.
Yeah, that's right. So Morningstar has been an early data partner with FinTech Sandbox, actually going back to 2015. And over the years, we've supported organizations such as attending events in person or virtually, like the one we last did at the Boston Federal Reserve. We also mentor startups, so there's certainly complications with interacting and integrating data. So we certainly mentor them around like real-time market data, for example, and all the nuances there. A startup navigating such a large organization like Morningstar can be certainly overwhelming. And the relationship with FinTech Sandbox really enables startups to get direct access to Morningstar solutions that will really power their business. So at Morningstar, you will be introduced to an experienced business development rep across our alliances team, and we will be there working with you hand in hand to understand your business, your product roadmap, and also how it aligns with Morningstar's overall vision and our product roadmap. And we'll be introducing you to subject matters across the business and stakeholders to provide their expertise. And really today, the Morningstar relationship with FinTech Sandbox supports 4 main products. So account aggregation is one of those key products where we connect to over 15,000 financial institutions, providing a holistic financial picture. Manage investment data, fund data feeds, ETF data feeds, anything with a portfolio, we can provide you that rich information around performance fees and classification. Equity data, such as equity data, classifications, sector, industry, fundamentals, and so much more. And then global market data. We connect to every exchange on the planet, so we can provide real-time, delayed, end-of-day tick level, aggregated quotes from global exchanges. So our agreement with the FinTech Sandbox not only makes it easier to navigate this space, but we also provide 6 months of free development period for applications not yet producing revenue. And we are seeing some really amazing trends across the FinTech ecosystem. A hot one today is platformification, where we see platforms enabling financial institutions to connect and integrate and configure an end experience for a retail or professional advisor. I would say another one is enterprise artificial intelligence. Certainly AI was hot a few years ago, but it has really come to life today. And then personalization, advice, research, using data to really customize and configure an experience.
And don't forget ESG, Anthony. Let's talk about that, actually. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance considerations in the investing process. Socially responsible investing, sustainable investing, and investing for impact are all terms used at times synonymously to describe ESG considerations as applied to the investment process. Founded in 1992, Sustainalytics is a global leader in ESG research and data, serving the world's leading institutional investors and corporations. Our relationship with Morningstar goes back to 2017, combining rich company-level ESG research with Morningstar's full holdings to produce overall sustainability ratings for funds. In 2020, Sustainalytics became a part of Morningstar to accelerate our efforts to bring meaningful ESG insights and engagement to all types of investors across different asset classes. Our corporate solutions help corporations and financial intermediaries consider sustainability in policies, practices, and capital projects. When it comes to ESG-focused trends in FinTech, we see an increased demand for and the recognition of the value of data to support transparency and combat greenwashing. We also see the democratization of socially responsible investing and, of course, personalization at scale.
And today we are thrilled to make an announcement for the FinTech Sandbox.
We are thrilled to announce that some of the same research and data that our institutional clients use across the investment value chain will be available to FinTech Sandbox startups. We are excited with the expansion of our partnership with FinTech Sandbox and look forward to meeting and working with you. Please reach out to fintech@morningstar.com to learn more about our solutions available through FinTech Sandbox. We look forward to meeting you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the second segment of our conversation on sustainability, which will focus on innovation at Sustainalytics. My name is Lawrence Johnson. I'm head of FinTech engagement at Morningstar.
And I'm Arik Brutyan. I'm the head of smart technology innovation at Sustainalytics.
So today, we're going to give you a glimpse of what the future of ESG and sustainability platforms will look like. Arik and I were both looking forward to being in Boston this week, but for Arik, this was going to be a special moment, something of a homecoming.
Absolutely. I went to university in Boston more than 20 years ago and graduated from Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts. So it's thrilling to be back.
Great, great. So we'll have to go back very soon. So, Arik, before we jump into this, can you tell us a few things about the work you do and your team?
Absolutely, Lawrence. Thank you very much for the question. The smart technology team that I'm representing here is responsible for research, development, and integration of smart technology into Sustainalytics information value chain. So there are a few terms here to be clarified. Smart technology for us stands for the union of artificial intelligence, information retrieval and extraction, and data-intensive digital curation technologies. So that's where we operate, and these are the domains that my team is responsible for. And Sustainalytics information value chain refers to the process of Sustainalytics defining the data of our interest, acquiring or creating it, making it ready for research, processing, using the data for generation, for insight generation, and finally delivery of insights to our clients. We are the R&D team that's responsible for this process.
So that's interesting. So these domains and processes to be able to deliver that is extremely important. So what were the key innovations that made Sustainalytics in this context one of the largest ESG independent research providers globally?
Before answering the question, I think it's important to highlight that being an innovation team, the key challenge for us has always been thinking about the challenges of the future, not thinking about the challenges of the present. So our team started 8 years ago, and if 8 years ago, back in 2013, we thought about using innovation to solve the challenges of the day, we probably wouldn't be where we are today. So our key challenge has always been to think into the future, think about what the challenges in sustainability research would be, let's say, in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time, and start getting ready for those challenges today. So we've never thought in terms of present. We've always thought in terms of the future. And that would explain what the main milestones for our teams were. So back in 2013 and 14, we were already thinking and operating or delivering within the domain of complex classification engines or descriptive analytics engines, which were, relatively new in the ESG domain, in sustainability domain. We stepped into information retrieval and extraction again early in the day, and then a couple of years after we started doing our R&D work on this, suddenly, we start feeling the market pressure for a broader scope of research, for deeper research, and broader research or deeper research wouldn't be possible without very well understood combination of information retrieval and machine learning. Because we thought about that a couple of years before that, that combination was something already attainable for us. So we were ready to to deliver. So the second, I would say, milestone after descriptive analytics and already some kind of transition into predictive analytics was the combination of machine learning and information retrieval and extraction. Also, I think earlier than markets started pressuring us, we started thinking about the challenge of data-intensive digital curation. It sounds simple, curation could be an UI, could be an interface, but the key term here is data-intensive. When you need to basically almost guess and pick up the type of data and its appearance that is supposed to be displayed to the researcher or even to the client. And when you deal in a very data-heavy environment, the key challenge is not data acquisition. The key challenge is not even finding the patterns. So this had been the challenges in the past, so to say, compared to that moment. The key challenge becomes how and which data to present to the researcher, because depending on that, research will go in this or that way, will be more or less effective. And we started working on that and doing early mistakes, which is the fun of innovation, because if you can try to think about the future, then you're buying for yourself the time to experiment and do the early mistakes. By the time that when suddenly curation became the buzzword, we'd been more or less ready. So what I mean by this is that the final solutions were already in the range of attainability for us. So I would say that these three key milestones, referring to machine learning, information retrieval and extraction, and data-intensive digital curation, were the ones that defined the cadence and the direction and the achievements of the team. Obviously, we did our mistakes along the way. It's called innovation for the purpose.
So you learned how to learn and to grow and find these patterns. So that's very interesting. So you've always been forward thinkers, and you've been able to basically create pathways to the future. But the future is getting a lot more complex. I believe that sustainability is sitting at the intersection of so many domains, such as governance, supply chains, diversity, investments. So what will the future look like, and how are you going to help us get there?
That's a fantastic question, because we talk about the future, but we often confuse two terms here. Future as we already see it unfolding before us. And in this sense, it's not even future, Lawrence. It's already present, starting to be materializing, so to say. And future that hasn't yet sent any signals back to us of what it could be. Like if anybody was able to see that future in the second sense of the word, that would be quite a breakthrough. I'm not there. I don't think anybody yet is yet. But the one thing that we've learned, again, through mistakes, and we love those mistakes, because doing the right mistakes, doing them the right time is what learning is all about. So the one thing we've learned by working in this very volatile area of smart technology, artificial intelligence, info retrieval, curation, emerging technologies, unfolding technologies, not even mentioning mutually distributed ledger, also known as blockchain. One thing that we've learned is that you can't really obviously know what the future could be like, but you can keep your options open. So that's the key question. We try to think about possible scenarios of the future that we could be mentally extrapolating. And then we think about what technologies would allow us to keep as much options open for different types of future as possible. So we could imagine a scenario where, let's say, the quality of write-ups, analyst write-ups, would be becoming more and more important, because in that scenario of the future, we could see important decision makers just wanting to consume insights as texts. We could think about a future where a decision maker would think, just for the sake of an example, would think equally important, would attach an equal importance or even more importance to numerical expression of the insights, to the values of ratings, and simply because then they could be reused at the client end. So what could be, what kind of technology could be keeping these options open for these two types of not necessarily mutually exclusive futures? There's a big overlap. And an interesting example could be, I'm thinking about natural language generation, a machine learning technology that is able to consume purely quantitative data and produce human-level texts. So in the course of working on natural language generation, you will not only have covered for one possible scenario, generation of insights as text, but you necessarily will have covered also generation of quantitative signals on many, many, many levels, mutually subsuming levels. So this example is just to show, to showcase our thinking, the way we try to think. We try to keep our options open. We try to position ourselves for as many conceivable types of futures as we could think about.
Very interesting. I'm glad that you referred to the job that you do of trying to find signals. But one signal that we sent very clearly, and we talked about in the first segment, is that Morningstar and Sustainalytics is keen on supporting young companies through the FinTech Sandbox. We've announced that we're providing data to them, Sustainalytics data, that is. And we just walked away from the Morningstar Investment Conference where we showcased 20 FinTechs that have access to very powerful technology stacks and data, and many of which pointed to the fact that they are now very interested and focused on ESG. So, Arik, what would be the most important insight or advice that you would like to give to emerging FinTechs, emerging financial technology companies, in light of the fact that you are, in fact, a FinTech at scale? So I don't know if you have any advice for these young companies.
I'll try to give one. The way we've positioned the team that I'm representing in Sustainalytics has always been to think about ourselves as a startup within the company. So I'm honored to be considered as one. And I think from where I am today, it's hard to formulate this as an advice. I would just say it's just a forward-looking reflection. I wouldn't be as, in a way, arrogant to say that it's an advice. My forward-looking reflection would be the following. The data has always been important. Obviously, it's been said a lot of times that we have already entered the age of the data. And the data is new oil. And we're glad to be able to, or the new gold for the sake of another example, we're glad to be able to support with a lot of data and support FinTech companies to play with sustainability data. But when we think about the future, as we started, Lawrence, at the beginning of the conversation, I think the key reflection that I'm having in mind is that it's equally important, and it's becoming more and more important, what you can do with the data. The data is becoming increasingly available. Means of acquiring data are becoming increasingly available. Excuse my awkward English, but the means of acquiring data are being commodified, and it's a good sign. It's a sign that these technologies are increasingly better understood, and they're in a way becoming kind of core capital for FinTech companies. I think what's important is how technology, whether it's AI, whether it's machine learning or information extraction, how technology can be used to derive insights from the data. Direct insights, meaning signals nested in the data. Second order insights, you take the volume or velocity of signals and think about what this volume and velocity combined with anything else about the particular theme can mean. So it's kind of almost a second order signal. You combine together signals that live, or raw signals that live in the data. But the secret sauce comes when you use technology to come up with the right combination of these signals. That's what I refer to as second order signals. And I think, or I dare to predict, if you will, that that's going to be, or is already becoming the key challenge for sustainability, and technology, if you will, right? So I would say my advice would be look into technology that allows to generate informed insights, look into how to use technology to understand what a signal meant in its original context of emergence, or what that signal could mean in its intended context of the use. In a way, my advice is, nothing is new, right, under this moon. So my advice is that with newer technology, we're again returning back to the old hermeneutical, if you will, problem of understanding meanings within their context of emergence or context of their use. We have better tools, but the key task is remaining the same. I hope I haven't sounded too abstract though.
Oh, that sounds great. So we want fintechs to be much more aware of the contribution and the role they play in bringing this type of data and insights in context for investors, and to help them deliver better outcomes for investors. So thank you, Eric. This, I think, is all the time we have today. This was fun and interesting. I don't know if you have any last words.
Thank you very much, Lawrence, for the opportunity, and let me wish good luck to everybody who's part of this amazing journey. Innovation is always an amazing journey, so I'm humbled and delighted to be part of that journey.
Well, thank you, Eric. Thank you all for visiting with us today. I hope you stick around for our third segment, which is really the story about how Morningstar is consuming its own medicine, its own sustainability and ESG medicine. So thank you very much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We're looking forward to being part of this very innovative group at the 2021 Boston FinTech Gathering. I'm Gabrielle Pressler. I'm the Director of Enterprise Sustainability at Morningstar. That's our effort to translate Morningstar's values into core competencies and business practices at the firm, using research and data as our guide. You've already heard so much from my colleagues about the work we're doing at Morningstar and Sustainalytics to deliver ESG data and innovation to global audiences. This ESG data and research is mission critical for us. Morningstar's animating purpose is to create successful outcomes for investors, and we're aiming to be the leading ESG voice for investors. When it comes to ratings and research for sustainable investments, Morningstar has many touch points with stakeholders that put us in a very strong position to engage the discussion, and it's a responsibility that we take extremely seriously. It's historically been our premise that investors need to know what's in their portfolio and that they deserve to know what's in their portfolio. So we've been a pioneer in establishing clear, jargon-free ratings for investment portfolios and for investments in general. More recently, with the Sustainalytics partnership, we're focused on providing comprehensive ESG and carbon risk metrics for portfolios. And you see us establishing these kinds of look-through tools and ESG-focused metrics across our business, from portfolios to equities, to indices, and to the credit and private markets. What we know is that stakeholders want to understand how Morningstar itself is positioned with respect to sustainability. So we're using many of these same ESG frameworks, research, and data sets to hold ourselves to account when it comes to enhancing our firm's own sustainability. As I said, it's our goal to transform our values into core competencies in product development, in our businesses, in our operations, our research, and our workplace. And we do it with a lens of materiality. So we consider our most material issues. We identify those by consulting with our research teams and with Sustainalytics, with outside stakeholders, with our employees, and with outside organizations. Each of these material issues is associated with one of our data sets, and we track progress on that data year on year, aiming for incremental improvement as we chart our course towards a more sustainable company. We also commit to disclose that progress regularly, certainly through corporate sustainability reporting, but also through partnerships, international agreements, and global frameworks that are emerging to define this area. And those are agreements such as the UN Global Compact, or outside reporting frameworks like the UNPRI. We recognize that this isn't one and done for any company. But using materiality as our guide, we've been able to identify associated data sets for each issue and establish a roadmap for our sustainability journey. And in this effort, the innovative work that Sustainalytics has done in ESG measurement and impact measurement has been key. Eric and Mira and Anthony have all touched on the power of ESG data to help with just this kind of decision making. So today we sort of wanted to bring it to life for this group. So we're talking to key leaders at Sustainalytics who are helping us to transform Morningstar's value into measurable progress across the organization. Francesca Plaka is a leader in our Sustainalytics Corporate Solutions team, and John Elkin directs the ESG assessment platform, which is our digital tool for supply chain assessments. So welcome to you both. Thank you for being here. As you both know, whether they're public or private, a key challenge facing companies right now is understanding not just the sustainability of their products and services, but figuring out a way to sort of assess the impact of their supply chains. Because leaders are being asked questions by their investors, by their employers, employees, and certainly by the public about their management and exposure in this area. Francesca, you manage this every day. So what's the main challenge to the sustainability supply chain right now?
Well, with the types of supply chains that we have nowadays, so complex, so interconnected, I'd say the main challenge is the lack of visibility. So at best, corporates have a decent picture of their own ESG performance, maybe of the ESG performance of their tier one suppliers, that is their direct suppliers, but they know nothing beyond that level. That makes it extremely difficult to identify potential controversies, environmental or human rights violations, which typically are concentrated in the lower tiers of the supply chain. So giving corporates knowledge and understanding of what is happening in these lower tiers of their supply chain, in their extended supply chain, is the first and most important step towards concrete action and towards sustainable supply chain. And this is something that we're doing by leveraging our growing database.
Perfect. And that's certainly true for us. You know, John, our team started working together on this much more closely when Morningstar and Sustainalytics joined forces. What do you, from your perspective, what do you see the potential of our work together being?
Yeah, I mean, this is really going to allow us to see the ESG risks and impacts in our own supply chain, right? By taking a look at our own suppliers, we're really going to be able to see where we might need to take certain corrective actions or improve our supply chain interaction. So it's really sort of a values-based decision. We can take our corporate values and align those more closely to the suppliers that we're interacting with on a day-to-day basis.
Let's also discuss timing, because you and I have talked about this a lot. You know, corporate sustainability projects and corporate sustainability data seems like this huge long-term lift for firms, especially when they're at the beginning of their corporate sustainability journey. So how have you seen companies successfully sort of chunk out the projects when it comes to supply chain assessments?
Yeah, supply chains can be daunting, and depending on the industry, depending on the size of the supply chain. So we ourselves, and we've seen our customers, really start to look at specific areas of their supply chain first. So it could be critical suppliers by spend, it could be by category, or the importance of that supplier to a process or product that they make. And then once we have that kind of base level of understanding of the ESG risks in the supply chain, we can start to broaden that out to the broader supply chain. And as Francesca said, we can start then to look down at lower tiers in the supply chain as well.
And as somebody who sees so many different companies across the platform, what's the biggest obstacle you think companies are facing right now when it comes to making their supply chains more sustainable? I think so many of the suppliers are super, super niche and really, really small. So what are you doing to address those kinds of, the reality of those obstacles?
Yeah, it goes back to what Francesca was saying about visibility, right? Trying to find that data on those small private suppliers can often be a challenge. So the methodology team inside Sustainalytics has developed an AI predicted machine learning tool that allows us to really quickly and accurately take a look at what an ESG rating would be for those small niche suppliers. And it really allows you to get that total view into that supply chain, where you might not always have the same level of information or disclosure as a publicly traded corporation.
Thanks, Francesca. From my perspective, we're really at the beginning stages of being able to dig into supply chain assessments with ESG risk ratings. But what's the future for this area? What do you see emerging, and how is Morningstar responding to sort of corporate demand for other sustainability solutions?
Yeah, so we've already started responding through impact. So impact services are really at the top of our priorities for the next few years, and they already are. The message that we want to give to corporates is, once you've done a risk assessment, or as you do your risk assessment, so you're looking at, if you will, the negatives, start looking at the positives, which is your impact. What are the positive impacts that you're creating? And the scope of an impact assessment can really be different. So you can assess the impact of your own operations, of your CSR or social programs, of your entire supply chain, or even of the financial instruments that you issue. For example, we're now starting to look at the impacts of green bonds, and we're just getting started. So the common thread that we have found across these different types of impact assessments is that corporates generally know the volume of their spend, of course. They know where they spend, but they don't know what the value that their spend creates is. What is the value that it creates to economies, to societies, and the environment? So we collect their data, supply chain, project level data, company level data, and we help them quantify this impact and effectively communicate it to their stakeholders.
Perfect. Well, it's a very exciting effort within your group, and it's been, tremendously powerful for Morningstar. So thank you both so much for joining us today. And we've been thrilled to be part of the Boston event, and we hope the conference is very successful. Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Welcome to our conversation about harnessing data at scale. It is an exciting time to be in FinTech today. With the power of cloud, streaming data, machine learning, we can deliver more personalized advice and services to our clients than ever before. And at the heart of all of that is data. And what you need to do is get that data in the hands of your analysts and your engineers as quickly as possible. And so hence there's been an evolution in how companies are storing their data in the cloud and how they're accessing it. And today we'll talk to Christian Rauming, who is the CEO and founder of AtLeap, about what are those trends happening in the data industry and how AtLeap can help customers build out their data lakes and warehouses in the cloud. And next, we'll hear a practical example from Jeff. Jeff is the head of the data and analytics platform at Morningstar, and he will share our story of how Morningstar has been working with AtLeap on our journey to building out a data lake. So Christian, over to you.
Thanks, Anna. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here to talk about data and analytics. I've been in data my whole career, and I was previously CTO at an ad tech company where we had data in all kinds of places. We had partners that we'd receive data from. We had data in our own internal databases. We use services like Salesforce and Google Analytics. And we ended up building these computing clusters to centralize all that data in order to make it usable for analytics and data science. And that ended up being a tremendous amount of work. In fact, we had an engineering team dedicated to doing just that full time. And so, while the engineers were bogged down in these long projects, our analysts and scientists were essentially waiting for data to be able to do their job. And that led to a lot of frustration. So when I took a step back, it started to look like a tooling problem to me. So I went out basically looking for tools, that could essentially help us do without all that time and effort and frustration. And the good news was that I found a bunch of traditional ETL tools that were well established in the industry and were available to evaluate. But the bad news was that when we did, it turned out that they were built for an era where data didn't live in very many places and there wasn't as much of it. And so we actually found after that evaluation that the sort of one wouldn't help us reduce the amount of time that our analysts and scientists would wait, and also it wouldn't reduce the engineering effort for our team. And so I saw other companies struggling with the same type of effort and decided to build that leap. And so what we're doing is essentially making it fast and easy to build warehouses and lakes in the cloud. And our product lets you stand up Amazon Redshift and Snowflake data warehouses, as well as data lakes on AWS. It basically makes it possible to do without a bunch of engineering effort. And so, in other words, I believe it shouldn't take years of effort and an engineering team to build great data analytics infrastructure.
Thank you. Well said. And now let me turn it over to Jeff to share Morningstar's story.
Thanks. So about 2 or 3 years ago, we were challenged, my group was challenged with helping our quants to build their predictive models. And Morningstar is almost a 40-year-old company. So you can imagine that with acquisitions and data growth over time, we have our data kind of spread across the organization in a handful of kind of large different hubs, if you will. We didn't have it all in one central place. And so our goal was we wanted to build a data lake to put it into a central place so that our quants could easily mine that data. Right now, or back then, I should say, that the quants were spending a lot of time like collecting the data, trying to find out the sources where it came from, bringing it into that central location, cleansing it, marrying it together, and then only when they did all that work, they thought that they were able to actually start building their models and trying it out. So you could imagine that for the huge upfront cost for doing that, our quantitative research team had to be very judicious about which research ideas to really follow, which one might have the most legs. So kind of innovation was, I would say, impeded by the fact that of this kind of this supply chain issue of kind of getting the data to our quants quickly. And so we took a similar approach as Christian with his previous company, where we started looking at the players in the field and the various ETL solutions that were out there. What we found was very similar, was that they were built for kind of last generation. They did have some cloud-based and next generation features, but they were kind of a bolt-on to kind of the main offering, which was really built for last gen. So it wasn't really kind of built for purpose for what we were looking for. So we said, okay, we're going to start biting this off on our own, and we are going to build it on our next generation platform, which is hosted on AWS. We made a decision as a company several years ago that AWS was going to be our primary cloud provider. And so we started looking at the various technologies and tools that AWS provided to stand up data lakes. And we began our journey. After kind of helping our quantitative researchers get some data into that central location, we were scratching our heads ourselves because we just felt like we were doing kind of undifferentiated work. AWS has these tools and technologies like I talked about, but they don't have really an end-to-end solution. They have some libraries called AWS Glue, and the point is just you glue these tools and technologies together to kind of create your solution. But what we found ourselves doing was writing a lot of one-off adapters to the various disparate data sources, and we found that our business analysts and our researchers and developers were having to kind of collaborate tediously to get the code built to do the transformations that the developers wanted. And so the developers would deploy that code in Glue, and then that data would then become available. And it worked, but we said there's got to be a better way. And fortunately, I should bring up one last point, which is we ran into scalability issues as well. We knew that as we were building these pipelines and more data was coming on, that we were going to have to scale them. What we quickly realized was we needed kind of an industrial strength kind of scaling solution that fit kind of all our pipelines. And that meant building like a scalable infrastructure for the entire data lake, which was a project in itself. And so we went, fortunately, one of our engineers attended AWS reInvent and saw the @Leap talk. And came back and said, I really think like this is what we're trying to do. And through further analysis, it was very clear that @Leap was kind of built for purpose the way that we were looking to build things ourselves. As you know, the three main examples there are on the integration front. They have, I don't know how many dozens of connectors, whether you're talking about Salesforce or Google Analytics or SQL Server, a variety of different ways to just out of the box get data and source it from a given location. The next powerful thing they had was what they call the Data Wrangler, which is a very slick UI that essentially allows you to do the ETL code. So all that Glue code that developers are writing, we could now say, you know what, business analysts, you know the logic, and here's a tool that will allow you to kind of implement that by yourself. You don't need developers' help. And so that that was tremendously helpful in freeing up developers' time. And then finally, it was built on top of AWS's Elastic MapReduce system, their scalability technology. So all the scalability issues that we were running into and that platform that we were going to have to build and the way that we would have done it was already built by @Leap. So it felt really like a perfect fit. We ran some prototypes and finally with our acquisition of Sustainalytics, we managed to get some the Sustainalytics data into our data lake very quickly, and that was a big success story. And with that, we started kind of leveraging @Leap for all of our data pipelines into our data lake at this point. So, the developers were super happy because, it allowed them to stop working on what they considered undifferentiated work or the plumbing of the platform and allowed them to kind of focus on the more differentiating work, which is the integration of our specific financial domains and systems and adding value to the ultimately the end investor. So those three things that I talked about, integration and the flexibility with integration points, also with destinations, Snowflake, Redshift, data lakes, as Christian mentioned, then the data wrangling experience and the democratization of that, allowing non-developers to actually wrangle the data, as well as the scalability issues that we were having and @Leap kind of addressing that as well. And then finally, we were, being a financial institution, we're very particular about where our data is. And @Leap has a handful of different deployment solutions. And so for us, we wanted our data within our four walls. @Leap supported that. So we have an instance deployed within our AWS account. And the developers are happy, and we're continuing to onboard pipelines daily now. And the researchers, I should say, are extremely happy because now they can actually innovate at a much quicker pace than they ever could before, because they don't have to be as judicious as they used to, because now the data is just there for them.
It's wonderful. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Jeff, thank you. Christian, thank you so much. It's been quite insightful to learn about what's happening in the data space overall, and really specifically how companies and fintech companies can take advantage to really drive their innovation forward. If you'd like to learn more about Morningstar's journey or about AtLeap, please take a look at the slide that we'll post right after this, and thank you so much.